dance with my mom?
Can you dance with my mom? The little girl asked me at the wedding, pointing toward a woman sitting silently in a wheelchair near the edge of the ballroom. I looked at her mother, and the moment our eyes met, her expression changed from confusion to fear. She stared at me as if she had seen someone from a life she had tried desperately to forget. Then she lowered her eyes and whispered that she had not danced in years. What she didn't know was that I had met her and her daughter once before, on a cold afternoon outside a city park, when her driver was late and I was the only stranger who stopped to help them. If you believe kindness can change lives and that people deserve second chances, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Soul Tales for more emotional stories like this. 3 months earlier, I had never heard the name Elena Carter. I was simply a single father trying to keep my life together while raising my 8-year-old daughter and working long hours as a freelance event photographer. Life had taught me not to expect much from strangers, because most people were too busy carrying their own problems to notice anyone else's. That afternoon, I had taken my daughter to a large public park after school. The sky was gray, the wind was cold, and families were slowly leaving as evening approached. While we were walking toward the parking lot, I noticed a young girl sitting beside a woman in a wheelchair near the park entrance. The girl looked healthy and energetic, but the woman beside her could barely move her upper body. Her hands rested quietly on the armrests of the wheelchair, and her expensive coat could not hide the exhaustion on her face. The girl kept looking toward the road, clearly waiting for someone. After nearly 20 minutes, she stood up and walked back and forth beside her mother, checking the same direction again and again. I could tell something was wrong, so I asked if they needed help. The woman immediately became defensive, telling me that their driver was coming and that they were fine. Her voice was calm, but her eyes revealed embarrassment. She was clearly uncomfortable being seen in a vulnerable situation. I apologized and started to walk away, but then I noticed her daughter trying to push the wheelchair toward the curb while struggling with the weight. I returned and gently offered to help. This time, the woman didn't argue. Her name was Elena, and her daughter was Lily. Elena was the CEO of a successful technology company, but none of that mattered in that moment. She was simply a mother who had been waiting too long for a driver who should have arrived 20 minutes earlier. She explained that an accident had left her paralyzed from the waist down several years before, and since then, she had learned to depend on other people for things she once did without thinking. She hated being treated differently, and she hated even more when people looked at her with pity. I understood that feeling, even though my struggles were different. I told her that needing help did not make someone weak. Sometimes it simply meant life had given them a heavier load to carry. Her daughter listened carefully while I pushed the wheelchair beneath the shelter of a nearby cafe. I bought them both hot chocolate because the wind had become colder. Elena tried to refuse, but Lily accepted hers with a smile so genuine that Elena finally laughed for the first time that afternoon. That small laugh stayed with me. We talked for nearly half an hour until their driver finally arrived, apologizing repeatedly for the delay. Before they left, Lily asked for my daughter's name and promised they would meet again someday. Elena thanked me, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she was not accustomed to being treated normally anymore. I thought that was the end of our story. I was wrong. Weeks later, I received an invitation to photograph a large charity wedding being held at one of the most beautiful hotels in the city. I accepted the job because I needed the money, never imagining that the bride's family would include Elena Carter. The ballroom was filled with flowers, music, expensive suits, elegant dresses, and hundreds of guests. I was moving through the crowd with my camera when I noticed a little girl standing near the dance floor. It was Lily. She recognized me immediately. She ran toward me with the same bright smile I remembered from the park. She hugged me without hesitation and then grabbed my hand, pulling me toward her mother. Elena was sitting in her wheelchair beside the dance floor, beautifully dressed in a deep blue gown. She looked completely different from the exhausted woman I had met outside the park, but the sadness in her eyes was still familiar. Lily looked at her mother, then at me, and made the request that changed everything. She asked if I could dance with her mom. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Elena's face became pale. She shook her head, trying to stop Lily from asking again. But Lily explained that her mother used to love dancing before the accident. She said her mother never danced anymore because everyone was afraid she would fall, and she wanted her to feel happy again, even if only for one song. The music continued behind us, but Elena seemed to hear nothing. She looked at me with tears gathering in her eyes. I knelt beside her and told her that I remembered what she had said at the park about not wanting people to feel sorry for her. I told her I wasn't asking her to pretend she could walk. I simply wanted to give her one ordinary moment where she could enjoy music without thinking about everything she had lost. I moved her wheelchair gently toward the dance floor. People began noticing us. Some stopped talking. Others smiled. Elena looked terrified. She had spent years avoiding attention, afraid people would see her wheelchair before they saw the woman sitting in it. But when the music slowed into a beautiful song, Lily stood beside her mother and placed Elena's hand in mine. I danced beside her wheelchair. I didn't try to make the moment dramatic. I simply moved slowly with the music, holding Elena's hand while Lily danced around us. For the first few seconds, Elena kept her eyes down. Then she looked up. A tear rolled down her cheek, followed by another. But this time, she was smiling. Then something unexpected happened. Elena whispered that the song was the one she had danced to on the night she and her husband had first met. Her husband had died several years earlier, shortly before the accident that left her paralyzed. She had stopped listening to that song because it reminded her of everything she had lost. She told me that after the accident, she convinced herself that happiness belonged to the woman she used to be, not the woman she had become. I told her she was wrong. She had not lost the woman she used to be. She had simply survived something that changed her life. The ballroom became strangely quiet as she listened. Lily held her mother's hand, and Elena finally allowed herself to cry. Not tears of sadness this time, but tears of relief. She told me that the afternoon at the park had been the first time in years someone had helped her without making her feel broken. I realized then why she had looked frightened when she first saw me at the wedding. She remembered the man who had pushed her wheelchair through the rain and told her she wasn't weak. That night changed more than Elena's feelings. It changed mine too. Over the following months, our families became close. Lily and my daughter became inseparable friends. Elena began attending small gatherings again instead of staying home. She started listening to music she had avoided for years. She even created a foundation that helped people with disabilities receive transportation assistance, inspired by the humiliating experience of waiting helplessly outside the park for a driver who had forgotten about her. But the greatest change was inside Elena. She stopped seeing her wheelchair as the symbol of everything she had lost and started seeing it as a tool that helped her continue living. She returned to work with a new purpose, became more involved in her daughter's life, and learned to accept help without feeling ashamed. And me? I stopped believing that strangers were simply strangers. Sometimes the person standing beside you for 5 minutes can leave a mark on your life that lasts forever. Sometimes a child sees something adults are too afraid to see. Lily had not asked me to dance with her mother because she understood romance or loneliness. She asked because she wanted her mother to smile again. Months later, at another family celebration, Lily walked up to me with that same mischievous smile. She looked toward her mother and then back at me. This time, she didn't need to ask the question. Elena was already waiting near the dance floor. She reached out her hand. And I realized that the little girl who had once asked me to dance with her mother had given all of us something far more valuable than a single dance. She had reminded us that a person's life should never be defined by what they can no longer do. It should be defined by the love they still have, the courage they still carry, and the people who are willing to stand beside them. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Soul Tales. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need a little hope today. And before you go, I want to ask you for just one thing. Comment, "Kindness gives second chances," if you believe one small act of kindness can change someone's entire life. Because sometimes, you don't have to save the world. Sometimes, all you have to do is take someone's hand when they are afraid to reach for yours.